It is hot. So if you are in Virginia or anywhere near Virginia, especially south of Virginia, you know that it is getting crazy hot all of a sudden this week. It's like the summer sun heard May was approaching and it rang the dinner bell and brought all of its appetite for scorching heat this week. And I know, grandmother, ladies don't sweat, they glisten. But I'm sweating because I did not see this heat coming. It was 70 last week and now all of a sudden the 90s are not what I'm feeling. The only thing that hates sudden heat waves more than I do is probably gonna be your fescue turf. If you recall from like half of our videos that we've done so far, fescue is a cool season turf. Unlike warm season turf grasses like Bermuda and Zoysia, fescue hates the summer. It doesn't do well in the heat. It does best in the cool parts of spring and fall. As you can see from this awesome chart that I borrowed from Oregon State University, the growth rate of fescue turf in relation to temperatures is a very even bell curve, where it doesn't grow very well when it's too cold and it doesn't grow really well when it's too hot. We see only a quarter of the same rate of growth once it gets to be around 90 degrees. So all of that crazy high growth that we saw, that peak is right around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, that crazy growth we've been seeing for the last few weeks is gonna slow down pretty rapidly now that we're getting these hot temperatures, especially if they end up being sustained over the course of the next couple of weeks. The good news about this heat, now that we are getting into the second half of summer, is that your POA is going to die. That's the good news. POA absolutely hates the heat. It is officially too hot for it. So if you have any POA Annua or POA Trivialis that we talked about in the video up there, then you will see it starting to turn pale, shriveling up, and dying off. Some of it might come back at the end of the fall this year, especially if it's POA Triv, because it likes to regenerate itself. But if you'll remember, the whole point is that early fall, when we overseed heavily with fescue and fill in those bare areas, it'll have less room to grow in. This is actually why fescue is the cool season grass of choice for transition zone areas like Virginia. As far as cool season turf grasses go, turf type tall fescue is very hardy when it needs to stand up to warm temperatures, especially when they are only a pretty short duration like we get in Virginia. So since we are tending fescue up here, there's a few things that I want you to know about how the heat affects your fescue, what to watch for, and how you as a homeowner are going to be the biggest asset to making sure it does well this summer. The fertilizer program that we're putting down, and even the seed that we use when we do your fall seeding, is going to be a big asset to making sure that your fescue lawn is healthy through the summer and able to survive episodes of drought and high heat waves at a much more consistent rate, so that you see less of a variability and kind of that roller coaster up and down depending on temperatures and rainfall. As you know, we're really focused on soil amending products as well as long-term nutritional correction of the soil to make sure that the turf is able to self-maintain and self-regulate, basically independent lawn situation where it can feed itself throughout the summer so that you see fewer peaks and valleys. But it's not the full picture. We can't do everything, so that's where we need your help as a homeowner in charge of your fescue lawn between our visits. This comes down to two things: mowing and watering. I know for their own reasons, neither of those is the most popular thing that you have to do in your yard, but they make a huge difference when they're done correctly to make sure that your fescue has the best chance at surviving and staying green and healthy throughout the summer, especially June, July, and August. Where mowing is concerned, this is one of those times where height really does matter. We're not just telling you to mow on the highest setting for aesthetic reasons, even though yes, for fescue it does look better, but also because it's better for the health of the plant. The taller that your fescue grass is, the better it is able to shade its roots and keep a healthy root system throughout the summer. This shading of the surface layer of the soil also holds in moisture a little bit longer, which is going to be a key, as we'll explain in a second, with your watering schedule. The ideal height during the summer is around 4 to 4.5 inches. Any higher and you might start to risk the fescue lying over, especially if it's starting to wilt a little bit because of the heat. So it's just something that you have to play a little bit by ear and customize with your lawn. Remember, when we talk about the highest setting on your mower, having it on notch 4 5 isn't going to necessarily mean 5 inches. Those notches do not always coincide with an inch measurement, so it's a really good idea to get out the good old-fashioned ruler and measure the height of your deck and where those blades sit compared with the ground so that you know exactly what you're mowing at. Some residential mowers, their highest setting is 3.5 inches, and this isn't terrible, but it's not ideal. So you really want to know what you're working with so you can have a more educated understanding of the impact it can have on your grass. A side benefit to mowing tall, if you are battling weeds or Bermuda grass that's mixed in with your fescue, is that most weeds, and especially Bermuda grass, do not like shade. They don't like it, they don't want it, that's not what they exist for. So having your fescue tall shades other grasses like your Bermuda or other various weeds and reduces the risk of them outcompeting your fescue and possibly smothering it out, especially if we get any periods of drought. And remember, be consistent with your mowing. Now that it's slowing down, it's going to be easier to be able to mulch those grass clippings if you're still mowing on a weekly schedule and not leave any chunks behind. Remember, a little bit of thatch is a good thing. It helps with insulating those roots and that soil layer. But mowing inconsistently or too infrequently ends up really stressing out your grass if you're taking more than 1/3 of the blade of grass off at once. So if your grass is getting up to 6 inches tall, that's when you want to mow it down to no lower than 4 inches without risking taking too much off at once. So consistency is key, height is key. That's going to be a big part of making sure your lawn is successful over the next few months. Now, this is where watering comes into play, and the situation on watering, just like with mowing, is unique for each lawn depending on its history, needs, and layout. Next Tuesday, our video that we're going to be putting out is going to be all about watering. I'm going to go into a ton of detail on how to set up your in-ground or your above-ground irrigation system, how much water fescue needs, how to measure how much water you're putting out in your lawn, how to make sure your coverage is even, all the good stuff that you really need to know to be able to maximize on that success. Most years we recommend pushing your fescue until Mother's Day as much as possible before turning your irrigation system on and starting to water it so that you're training those roots to drive deep. And that's the important thing, but we're already seeing in multiple properties what looks like heat-stressed and thirsty grass, where it's starting to pale a little bit in color, looks a little brittle, almost that kind of brown or even purple color. And that's the sign of heat stress that we're worried about and needs to be intervened with before it starts to shut down and really stress and thin out too early in the year. One of the things that makes turf type tall fescue unique in the cool season grasses that we normally see in ornamental lawns is its ability to develop a really deep, intricate root system. Fescue has the ability to drive roots 2 to 3 feet deep into the soil, but most lawns end up don't achieving that, either because they have debris or a shallow rock bed too close to the surface that prevents those roots from going that deep, or because they are being watered improperly. Watering the wrong way can have a disastrous effect on your fescue and can actually do more harm than good. When we talk about watering the wrong way, we normally mean watering too frequently, too heavily, too not heavily. It can all be an issue, and that's why it's really important to know exactly what you're doing. Fescue likes 1 inch to 1.5 inches of water per week on top of standard rainfall. Last year in 2018 was not standard rainfall. It was insane. We got drowned. Most people didn't have to water their grass except for a few weeks. That's not how this year is shaping up. We're not seeing that crazy rainfall yet, knock on wood. So it's a good idea to go ahead and get your irrigation system ready to go as soon as you start to see a change in color or brittleness to your fescue. Like I said, I'm going to go into a lot more detail about proper watering in the video on Tuesday of next week. So please stay tuned, subscribe, and get notifications, ring that bell if you haven't already, to make sure that you stay up to date on that video. It's something that a lot of our clients, new and old, have been asking me about in the last few weeks, so I want to make sure that you guys know exactly what you need to make sure that your watering system is primed and ready to run on time to maximize on that fescue success. Aside from mowing and watering correctly, the big thing that you can be doing this time of year as well is to monitor your lawn for any signs of disease or other kinds of trouble associated with the summer. This time of the year is when we start to see signs of fungus or grub issues if they are going to develop. It's still a little early for grubs, but we're already seeing several yards that have developed a little bit of a red thread problem. If you remember from our fungus video, red thread is just cosmetic, so it's not anything to be alarmed about. but it does end up putting fungus on our radar in general because we know that signs of brown patch are going to be soon to follow in any properties that are at risk of them. Brown patch, grubs, and nutsedge are all summer issues that you may or may not end up seeing in your yard, but it's important to know what to watch for. So be sure to check out that 3-part video series that we publish at the end of April if you haven't already, so that you know exactly what you as a homeowner should be watching for in between our visits. So we talked about watering, mowing, diseases. I think that's it, but if there's anything that you have questions about when it comes to your fescue or any other kind of lawn in regard to summer temperatures or anything else, be sure to give me a shout so I can make sure that you guys are covered and set up for success. This is a great time of the year when we see lawns generally looking amazing, and I know that's the case for most of our clients. If your lawn doesn't look amazing yet, then talk to me about it so we can figure out why. You know, maybe it's just not been enough time. We signed you up yesterday and I know you want that instant thing, but it just doesn't happen like that. Or maybe it has been a while, but you got really terrible soil or got fungus last year. Whatever it is, we want you to be happy and we want you to have success, so be sure to let me know if there's anything I can help with. I already said it, but I'm gonna say it again. Be sure to stay tuned for our video next Tuesday on proper watering. It's gonna be all the details that you probably don't already know, so that we can make sure, again, that you guys are covered. I appreciate you guys tuning in to talk with me about the crazy heat that we are having here. Like I said, I'm sweating, but I hope your lawn is looking stellar, and I'm really excited to see the kind of success we get this summer. Stay tuned, we'll talk to you again soon, and have a picture perfect day.